Hey, grace and God's peace, brothers and sisters. My name is Amatazai. I will be going over the part 2 of these 4-point edification of the third mission regarding Paul and his companions and fellow laborers. Okay, this is going to be covered over the scriptures from Acts chapter 20, verses 1 through verse 12. So I'm going to go ahead and get it started at verse 1. It says, after the uproar was ceased, Paul called unto him the disciples and embraced them, and departed for to go into Macedonia. Now, if you recall, in chapter 19, the uproar is referring to when Paul, Aristarchus, and Gaius were preaching the scriptures. They were preaching the gospel. And Demetrius, the silversmith, and the light craftsmen, they stirred up this uproar simply because their money was being affected. And people who worship Artemis, which was pretty much all of Ephesus, they were going to quit worshiping her, the Greek goddess, and start to follow the gospel. So they had to create this big riot, incite this riot, this uproar, and a mob came through in the amphitheater and dragged Gaius and Aristarchus in there. And of course, they tried to get Alexander to speak. The Jews being, of course, had to try to get the Alexander to speak on their behalf to say that, hey, we have no part. Let them know, let the Ephesians know that we, the Jews, we don't have any part with Paul, Gaius, and Aristarchus. We're dealing with them guys. We're not a part of that. But of course, Alexander never got a chance to speak because the town clerk pretty much calmed the crowd down and let them know, hey, this is going to, backfire on y'all. He gave them some information, advised them to pretty much disassemble and, go about their ways. And so they did. And this is how we got to verse 1 in chapter 20. And again, it says, and after the uproar was ceased, Paul called unto him the disciples and embraced them and departed for to go into Macedonia. I like this because the key point in this verse is to show that where Paul's mind was. Paul was not worried about Demetrius, the silversmith, nor the light craftsman. Okay, even though they incited the riot, even though they incited this uproar to go against them simply because they were teaching the gospels, his mind was not on that. His mind was on the disciples, the students, the learners, the believers, and he embraced them, right? Before he departed from Ephesus to go into northern Greece, which is Macedonia. Verse 2. And when he had gone over those parts, so when he had left from Ephesus, right in this area here, went over to Macedonia, which is northern Greece, when he had gone over those parts, it says, and had given them much exhortation, he came into Greece. Greece is referred to more so the southern part of Greece, okay, which is Achaia. So after he gave encouraging words and exhortation, this is what Paul and the fellow laborers were known to do. They never spent their time and focus and attention dealing with the naysayers, putting the time and the focus dealing with the naysayers and the heretics over the believers, over the disciples, over those who follow and accepted Christ. They always went back to every place that they touched the gospel with to exhort, to confirm the souls, to encourage the faith, to strengthen the faith of the churches of the believers. Okay, so now we're here in southern Greece, and it says here, and there abode 3 months. So right here, they're about in southern Greece for 3 months. And when the Jews laid wait for him, as he was about to sail into Syria, he purposed to return through Macedonia. So from here, he was about to go back to Syria, okay? Where Antioch, that's in Syria, right? So he was about to sail over to Syria, but knowing that the Jews had plotted against him. So he purposely went back up through northern Greece, Macedonia. And it says here, and there accompanied him into Asia, Sopater of Berea, and of the Thessalonians, Aristarchus, Secundus, and Gaius of Derbe, and Timothy of Asia, Eutychus and Trophimus, also known as Trophimus the Ephesian. Okay, so these men, they accompanied Paul into Asia. Remember, this is Asia right here. These going before tarried for us at Troas. So these men left to go over here to Troas. Those men referring to, again, Sopater, Aristarchus, Secundus, Gaius, Timothy, Eutychus, and Trophimus. They waited for Luke and Paul over in Troas. Okay, and we sailed. And we sailed away from Philippi, that we again being Paul and Luke. So Paul and Luke sailed from Philippi after the days of unleavened bread, and came unto them to Troas in 5 days, where we abode 7 days. So while Paul and Luke were dealing up here in Philippi, dealing with the Feast of Unleavened Bread, after 5 days, they went down to meet up with the brothers at Troas, okay? And they were here in Troas for 7 days. And upon the first day, this is verse 7, upon the first day of the week, when the disciples came together to break bread, Paul preached unto them, ready to depart on the morrow, and came on and continued his speech until midnight. Now, when Paul got to Troas, or when Paul and Luke met up with the brothers in Troas, they were there for 7 days. And again, on the first day of the week, the disciples came together and they broke bread. Paul was preaching because he knew he was about to leave and set sail tomorrow or the next day. So Paul preached for quite a long time. Verse 8. And there were many lights in the upper chambers where they were gathered together. And there sat in the window a certain young man named Eutychus, being fallen into a deep sleep. And as Paul was long preaching, he sunk down with sleep and fell down from the third loft and was taken up dead. So this brother in the third loft, in the window, listening to Paul's speech or listening to Paul preach, he fell asleep and he fell down to his death. Verse 10. And Paul went down and fell on him, and embracing him said, trouble not yourselves, for his life is in him. When he therefore was come up again, this is Paul going back up again, and had broken bread and eaten it and talked a long while, even till the break of day. So he departed. So Paul went back to teaching again, and he actually taught over to the next day before he departed. And they brought the young man alive, and were not a little comforted. So we look at now. I want to go into the book of Who's Who in the Bible and just get a little information real quick on Sopater. It says, a man from the church at Berea who, with others, accompanied Paul to Jerusalem to deliver the offering collected by the Gentile churches for the Jewish Christians who were suffering from the effects of the famine. So when Paul had men, in these different regions, in these different areas, okay, like especially like in Macedonia and in Greece, you had brothers that were actually taking up collections to help out and assist the poor that were affected by a famine in Judea and Jerusalem. Okay, so we must point that out. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and end it there, and I will continue on to part 3 of 4 when Paul goes to should I say, the elders of Ephesus, okay, to meet up with him so he could speak with them before going back over to Jerusalem. With that, I say grace of God, peace, and Godspeed to the believers.